Hey, welcome to Whitefields Community Church Sermon Extra. This is our weekly video in which we take a topic from the sermon that perhaps we didn't have time to cover, and we go a little deeper and share those messages with you. Hey, if you're watching on Facebook, do us a favor. We have been working to make sure that we've got audio. And so if you can hear us, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, on that live video. And I'm getting a message right now that we are getting those thumbs up and likes from you, that we've got audio. Hey, if you're listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, do us a favor, subscribe to this channel and like this video. Maybe share it with somebody on Twitter or some other platform. If you're watching on Facebook, we'd love it if you'd like the video. Share the video with others. Maybe start a watch party. And we're going to be looking at the scriptures for a few minutes today, and then we've got some exciting updates for you, exciting, encouraging updates about things going on in our church, the success of our latest outreach, and a few other great things to look forward to. So if you're watching on Facebook, we'd love it if you would like our page here, share this video, like this video, because we unabashedly want to get more gospel-centered content, that's the right word, content in front of more people. And so you can help us do that if you're watching right now. So, Mike, this past Sunday, you taught from Psalm 40. Mm-hmm. And maybe, one of the things that stuck out to me when we look at these Psalms is that the Psalms actually are classified in groupings. Now, that might not be obvious and apparent to a person who's looking at them for the first time or reading through the Psalms. But the more you look into them, you realize that the Psalms are grouped together. And one of the themes of the Psalm that you looked at on Sunday, and also the theme of the grouping of Psalms there, is this idea of waiting upon the Lord. Maybe you could share with us why you chose this Psalm to speak from, and maybe some thoughts on that idea of waiting on the Lord.
Yeah, well, I think what drew me to the Psalm, I don't know, I think I was going through my through the year Bible reading. I was in the Psalms, and this one just kind of stuck out to me. It's one I know very well. There's many songs written in this particular Psalm. And so when you asked me to teach, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just teach on Psalm 40. And so I dived into the Psalm, and and the theme of waiting on the Lord became very apparent when I really didn't have a direction of where to go with the Psalm. There's so many different themes that you can cover, talking about verses 6 through 8, just that's mentioned in Hebrews chapter 10 as well. That's a whole message in itself. And there's just so many different themes. But I was waiting on the Lord all week until probably Friday. And I'm like, Lord, I need to know. And I just kind of been praying through it, what to do. And I just kind of sat down at the keyboard and whatever the Lord was speaking to me in that moment through the Psalms was what ended up being on Sunday morning. And I just kind of started and finished it on Friday, and work through it that way. And so it and that became the theme of waiting on the Lord. It became more important for me from the Psalms on who you're waiting for, not necessarily the waiting process itself. And it just became, even through David's words, who are you waiting for? And when you talk about groupings of Psalms, this particular thought that's culminated in Psalm 40 begins in Psalm 37. When you're talking about waiting on the Lord, and what does that mean? And, David starts out with, in Psalm 37, delight yourself in the Lord. And there's commit your ways to him, rest in the land and do good. And these kind of ideas that are all caught up in the idea of waiting. And maybe the word waiting also is not the best word for in English. In Hebrew it's hope intensely. It's a very active word in other languages, and in English, waiting for us seems to be a very passive act. Yeah. And in as you study the psalm, especially that phrase, waiting, I waited patiently for the Lord. It's a very active phrase, and it almost led me to believe, it's the waiting is almost the act of living life, and it's waiting on the Lord, and that is basically what we are to do every day, bring glory to God through our lives, committing our way to him, resting in the land, delighting ourselves in him. These are all active things, but they're part of the waiting process.
Yeah, I always find it interesting that Isaiah 40 says that those who wait upon the Lord will rise up on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will do these things, not grow faint, right? So what it's saying is that basically waiting upon the Lord, this active thing that you're talking about, expecting, hoping in the Lord, this is something which energizes us as opposed to draining us. Now, I think about times when I've had to wait a lot. And like you said, it's passive and you feel helpless in the waiting process. Like if you're waiting at the DMV or you're waiting in line for a ride at an amusement park, it's almost more tiring than doing something is just waiting. It feels exhausting. But apparently waiting upon the Lord has the exact opposite effect. It's something that's energizing. I don't know, maybe you could speak to that. What do you think is different between that passive waiting on the Lord and this active, expectant hope? And how do you know if you're doing it?
Well, I think the major difference is who you're waiting with, basically. You know, if you want to talk, who is in the boat, you know, as I mentioned this term, who is in the boat in your storms of life with you? Who is in the trial with you? And in a sense, that becomes more important than the waiting process itself. And that person is Jesus. And how can you not be energized by being with Jesus? And if you are in a trial, I think you want to be with Jesus. And if you're not in a trial, you still want to be with Jesus. I think the point is you want to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think that's that, you know, the thing about waiting is like, who are you waiting for and who are you waiting with? And the fact is you're not really waiting for Jesus to somehow show up. He is there with you. And, you know, as you're waiting patiently for him, he is working on you. He's working on your life, and he's taking you through that and just walking with him through the trials. I think that is the thing that gives you energy and you know, just putting your face on him, waiting on him. He meets you in those times, and that's what gives you strength. And that's why when so many people, I know you've met many of them, they tend to almost rise to the occasion during those trials because the Lord is with them. And as you say, gives them, you know, they rise up on wings like eagles. Their strength is renewed. And like, how on earth can you be this way when you're going through these kind of things? And it's, well, because the Lord is with me. You know, and your faith becomes alive. Your faith becomes real during those times.
Yeah, I think that's been true in this current situation we're in. I mean, there's certainly a lot of negative things. I mean, certainly we don't rejoice in the fact that people are sick, that people are dying. And yet there's something about this trial which, on the other hand, it's almost like we as the people of God, we were made for this. We were so equipped for this. It's like now's our time to shine. There's so many opportunities in the midst of the calamity, not just like, you know, to be, I don't want to be pragmatic about it in the sense, but I do want to say that when there's a trial, you know, it's almost a sense of expectation. Okay, God, what are you going to do through this? What do you want to do in my life? What do you want to do through me in this that's going to be different, you know, that's going to be unique, that's for this particular time, right? For such a time as this, you have put me in this place. And there can be this sense of excitement and expectation that comes with it, which is the other thing I want to talk about, which this psalm, I think it highlights one of the interesting paradoxes that we have in the Bible. And that is that trials are bad, and yet sometimes God uses, well, not sometimes, for the believer, every time, God uses trials for our good, right? And so on the one hand, we say trials are so bad that we don't say every cloud has a silver lining. We say death, sickness, sadness, depression, these things are so bad that God himself came and God had to die in order to put an end to these things. That's how bad they are. And that's how much God himself hates and despises these things. And yet, we're also told, count it all joy when you experience various trials. And so, you know, we walk this line in between being excited when we face a challenge, and yet understanding that sin and the effects of sin are indeed bad, and they will be put an end to, or an end will be put to them eventually. And that is the very purpose, the telos, if you will, in Greek, right? The direction, the trajectory that all things are moving in is the end of death, the end of trials, the end of sadness. And yet, as we experience them here and now, we understand that we live in this time where these things draw us into the heart of God, as we wait upon God, as we, as God uses these things in our lives.
Yeah, and I think that's what I tried to bring out, kind of that idea. Everybody, as we talked about the word waiting, we think at the waiting, that the end of that I'm going to be pulled out of that and then everything's going to be okay. Okay, I'm saved from this calamity or this trial. And what I tried to bring out, something that the text kind of spoke to my heart, is what if it's enough that you're being, when God finally inclines to you and pulls you out, is to take you to heaven. That you're waiting on him in that trial as your life here on earth. And I think Psalm 63:3 really brings that out when David says, because of your love, that is why I'll praise you. And is that enough? And it's a question for me that I'm not sure I can totally answer, when I read that. Is God's love enough for me during this time? Is God's presence with me? Is knowing that he is with me, is that enough if I never get out of this pit? And I think, as you talked about sin and death, there are things on this earth that are not going to be fully realized and not going to be fully delivered from until we finally meet our Maker face to face and we're in his presence. No more tears, and I think that's important. I think it's important for us to realize that.
Yeah, and so we titled it Waiting on the Lord. So that was the first part. And then talking to yourself. So that was the other thing I wanted to highlight, is that these Psalms, again, they fit in groupings. You mentioned Psalm 37 starts this idea of waiting on the Lord. But also in this section, let's say Psalm 37 through Psalm 43 at least, and there might be more, highlight the idea of talking to yourself. And David does that in these Psalms. Essentially, he, in Psalm 40, as you brought out in your sermon, he is reminding himself of God's past faithfulness so that he has perspective on his current situation. And as you go on, Psalm 42 and Psalm 43, which we're going to talk about this coming Sunday, there are also examples of Paul not listening to himself, but rather speaking to himself. And one of the things that's struck me over the years is that a lot of our problems come from listening to ourselves. Our thought life, our self-talk can become a battleground where the enemy oftentimes attacks us. And it's so important that we speak God's truth into our own lives. Like there's a song you often sing where there's this line that says, I'll preach the gospel to myself. And so maybe just some thoughts on that and the importance of that in this group of Psalms.
Yeah, I think, reminds me, David is always almost exhorting himself with the promises of God. And I think some of that's lost to us in the English language as well. When he says, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name. Like in Hungarian, that's imperative tense. It's almost a command. It's not a feeling-based thing. It's based in the very character and nature of God. And it's reminding myself of God's promises that, we're a very feeling-based, type of people. And it's like, if I don't feel it, then it's not really real. But David takes a whole different tact where he takes what is real, and he commands himself, believe this, do this, because this is what is good. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of the promises of God, and you see Moses doing that all the time in the Old Testament. He's reminding God of his own promises to his own people. And I think that, that's why it's good to just be in the scriptures and be in the word and know the promises of God and remind the Lord of his promises to you. And I think that can always just build your faith.
And what an act of faith, right? Where you say, no matter how I feel in this moment, I know that this is true. And thankful, I think we should be thankful that we have the Word of God as a standard. It's kind of like how we have a ruler, right? Like I can say, well, this is probably about this long. But if you have a ruler, you can say, this is it. The ruler doesn't change, no matter how I feel or how my perception is. And that's why we have instruments, right, that are standardized, because we need to have something, a standard that doesn't change, upon which we can measure things, because our perception can often be swayed. And, I was just thinking about that, like how easily can our perception of reality be swayed by our, what we eat, how we sleep, how we feel in a given moment. And we need something outside of ourselves that is a standard that says, this is how it is all the time. And I think that David is an exemplary model for us in that he says, I'm going to choose to go with the standard, not with my ever swaying feelings.
Yeah, and his feelings go, I mean, thankfully they cover the entire spectrum from anger to exuberance to, and he deals in hyperbole all the way through that spectrum, but he always seems to go back to the standard.
He does, and sometimes, I'll be honest, when I'm reading the Psalms, like I was reading Psalm 42 the other day, I'm reading the Psalm and I'm like, he says, God, you've abandoned me and all these things, and I'm almost like, I'm getting a little worried as I'm reading this Psalm, like, hey, what are you saying, man? This can't be right. And then he comes back to the standard. So that tells us, on the one hand, that we can be very honest about what we're feeling with God, and God wants us to be honest, and yet we can't stay in that place of saying, well, this is just how I feel, right? We have to come back to God's word.
Yeah, no, great thoughts.
Hey, so guys, if you missed the message on Sunday, you can listen to it on Facebook and on YouTube and on our website, whitefieldschurch.com. We'd love it if you go back and maybe just binge watch a couple sermons, that's probably better than binge watching a lot of other things that are out there. So you can do that. One of the great ways, all the smart TVs now, they have YouTube on them. So just go on that YouTube app and you can just go to our channel, subscribe to it, and just, have them playing in the background as you're cleaning your house, as you're doing your things. And it's just a great way to fill your heart and your mind with the Word of God. Hey, now we're going to transition into a time of doing a little bit of family business. And what that means is we've got some cool updates about things we've been working on at our church. And Mike and I are going to chat about these things as well. But I want to tell you about some of the things. So, Mike, over the past couple weeks, we've been in the midst of one of our big outreaches, which is called Project Back to School. And that ended this past week. And I believe it was yesterday. We had, filled the church van with a bunch of backpacks. And some people from church drove them up to Health and Human Services in Greeley and delivered them. And I'm glad to report that this year is another successful year. Many people this year didn't want to go shopping on their own because of health concerns. But a lot of people this year donated, and we were able to buy things in bulk. And people came by the church, I think it was Monday, Tuesday, and they were assembling the backpacks. And I just want to say, hey, good job, everybody from the church, and thank you to those who donated and who brought in supplies. Those backpacks are being put to real use. And one of the things I like about what we do is that we're not just gathering supplies for, nameless people. We actually literally have names associated with every single backpack that we send out. And so,
and many of the people that donate backpacks personalize. They put notes in there. They put toys. They put dolls' clothes. They personalize each of the backpacks, and they really go the extra mile.
Yeah, so that's great. And so our next outreach in this same vein of ministering to the same group of people is going to be around Christmas time. That's going to be basically the entire month of November. So we encourage you to stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing that soon. Okay, a few other things that I want to tell you guys about. A big one is our youth ministry. It's called Equipped Youth, and our youth ministry has been ramping up. We have a great number of kids in there this year, which is really exciting, kind of a critical mass type feeling. And so this Sunday, August 9th, begins the Sunday night youth meetings. And so that's going to be here. We're going to be, taking precautions, social distancing, all that good stuff. We have a very big youth room, which is a huge blessing, and we're really excited to put it to use. So use for the youth.
Use for the youth.
Yeah, that's right. So that is going to be 6:30 p.m. Sunday night in the youth room. And I'm excited for what God's going to do in that. So if you guys have a middle schooler or a high schooler, we'd love it if you would send them out on Sunday night, bring them here to the church building, 2950 Colorful Avenue. tell them to invite a friend. If you know people who have youth who would love to be involved in something like this, we would love to have them, and we've got a lot of room in that youth room. So they'll be able to social distance and stay safe, but that's going to be this coming Sunday, August 9th, and that's going to be every week. Is that right?
Yeah, every week.
Every week, 6:30 to 8 p.m., and we'd love to just have a lot of kids growing in relationship with God and with each other. Okay, next thing. This Saturday, Sunrise Stampede, 10K and 2-mile run. We're going to be doing that at
Sandstone Ranch parking lot right across the street from here.
So what time are we meeting there?
Meeting at 8 o'clock. Race will start around 8:30.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's very kind of unofficial. We're just running as a church, so there's no exact start time. But we'll have a clipboard there, have some stopwatches and people doing timing. Bring something to drink. Make sure you bring sunscreen. It's going to be, there's no covering out there, but we're going to set up the trail. And, we're starting at 8 o'clock. Well, be there at 8. Race starts at 8:30.
Okay. There's a men's conference, and I believe the date is is it the third?
It's September.
September.
Yeah.
September 12th?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's a Friday and a Saturday.
Yeah. So it must be 11th and 12th of
11th
September.
and 12th, yeah.
I heard there's a super good speaker.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Speak at it, yeah. Yeah, it's actually going to be me. So I'm speaking at this men's conference. It's in Cheyenne, which is, roughly an hour away from here. And so we'd love to have you guys come out. They have a big space there, and they have plenty of room for everybody who wants to come. Friday night's going to be a worship time. And then Saturday, there are going to be 2 messages. I'm going to be speaking about the life of Gideon, 2 messages from the life of Gideon in Judges chapter 6. And then we're going to have a big meal. They've got a kind of a ministry up there where they grill and things like that.
Grilling ministries are the best.
Yeah. So that's going to be in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And for people who want information, we're going to have that available on our website pretty soon. So just kind of save the date, guys. September 11th and 12th. If you can't make the 11th, really try and make it on the 12th. It's going to be kind of a half day up there, 2 messages, a time of fellowship, prayer, and a meal. We'd love it if you would put that in your calendar. Speaking of conferences, next week is going to be the CGN and Calvary Chapel International Conference. It's moved online, so rather than canceling it, and they have this amazing lineup of speakers. Some people I'm really excited to hear from, especially Ed Stetzer. He's a missiologist, Moody Bible Chapel, and Wheaton College. Matt Chandler's going to be on there as well as other Calvary Chapel leaders. And so I'm really looking forward to that. If you guys want more information about that, you can sign up. It's only $10. I'm going to be involved in leading 2 parts of this conference, maybe 3 actually. So there'll be 3 parts that I'm involved actively in leading. And so I would love it if you would check out that conference. And we're also going to be having a screen here at the church where people can kind of drop by during the week and watch different sessions from the conference. So more information about that is at conference.calvarychapel.com. conference.calvarychapel.com, and it's going to run Monday to Thursday. And they're using a pretty cool platform for it. I didn't even know something like this existed. It's called Hopin, and it's an online conference platform where you can go to different virtual rooms. You can join different group huddles. So we're going to have one for the Colorado region. Anybody who's tuning into the conference from Colorado is going to be able to go in this one room. And we're going to be able to chat and have fellowship between sessions.
Oh, that's cool.
It's going to be cool. And there will be some seminars and things like that. I did one with some other friends from Expositors Collective on the topic of expository preaching. And I'm going to be on a discussion panel. So that'll be really cool. We'd love it if you guys would participate in that. And like I said, we'll have it here at the church. If you want more information, contact us here at the church. info@whitefieldschurch.com, or you can call us 303-775-3485. Okay, I think I've got one last announcement. I got 2.
All right.
I'll keep them quick. Women's ministry is starting up in the end of August. The first official meeting is going to be August 27th. And the way that women's ministry works is that they meet every week, but they meet on and off with morning and evening. And so what generally encourage women to do is choose a group. Choose if you're going to go in the evening group or the morning group, but they alternate every other week. So 1 week will be the morning, and that'll be here in the Commons, and that'll be kind of, you know, coffee shop style. And then there will be the evening group, which will be in the conference room, which is a larger classroom setting. They're going to be studying the book of Esther and also looking at Ezra and Nehemiah, but mostly focused on Esther. It's called For Such a Time as This, and signups are starting this Sunday, August 9th, in the Commons after services. Okay, so make sure, ladies, to sign up for that or get more information. And the final one is that we have our next gen reopening plan was just introduced last week. Michelle Pearl kind of gave you guys the plan for how it's going to happen. We're tentatively planning to open some classes, not all, in mid-September, early mid-September. And then we've got a 3-stage plan for how that's going to open up. We've got a YouTube video about that, and it's also on Facebook. It's also on our website. And we'd love it if you'd check out that Next Gen reopening plan and give Michelle some encouragement there. She's been working real hard on that, and her team of leaders as well in that Next Gen ministry. So, guys, that's all we've got for now for update and for our sermon extra. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you on Sunday in person and online, 9 and 11 a.m.